Okay, we're good?
Looks like
Okay, good morning. This is Snre Natural Resources and Energy, and it is Wednesday, March 25th. Oh my goodness.
make sure you're reading.
Yeah. Okay, and so we are starting the morning with our legislative council because we know that there's likely multiple amendments to S 325, which is on the floor today. And we are gonna talk at least about one of these amendments. Would love to understand it. I'm pausing right now because I'm thinking about while you're here, do we also, because I just got sent another one, do we talk about that one too? Let's just take one. So, okay, let's go to this amendment that came from Senator.
I'll take the office of legislative council. So you heard from Senator Heffernan yesterday.
Yes.
So this is Heffernan amendment is draft 2.1. It was posted yesterday and today. It is dated 3/18, which feels like a long time ago.
I agree.
So it only does two things. First, if you're looking at the draft that your committee voted out was draft 6.1. If you have that, you can look back. Otherwise, section 1, all it does is change the date from 2028 to 2029 in the tier 3 rulemaking section. So it pushes out when clerk needs to file the tier 3 rules with LCAR. Your version has 2028. It's pushing it out to 2029.
Okay. So the second.
And the second instance of amendment is then amending section 7, which is the effective dates, and so it's amending the effective date for tier 3. Your version has it at, again, June 30, 2028. This is pushing it out to January 1, 2030.
And so in my notes, on this section in a previous draft, I'd written down that that this section was the jurisdictional trigger for tier 2 and tier 3, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yes. Is there a jurisdictional trigger for tier 2?
No. Okay, so it's just the jurisdictional trigger for tier 3, or is it,
Tier 2 and tier 3 are in the section.
okay. So section 7 is effectively the implementation starting point for tier 3.
Yes. It's section 7 and your bill does multiple things. The amendment here is only it's only pushing out the date for tier 3.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Just to chat about this briefly, I would love to take a straw on this. Thoughts that folks have. I'll just start by saying I don't think this is necessary. I think the longer we wait for tier 3, the longer we jeopardize critical natural resources for not to do it. Other thoughts?
I'm not even sure Senator Heffernan can respond for this.
Okay. Okay. Well, okay, yes,
So the lawyer did ask us for more time,
they did.
and because of mapping, so.
And their recommendation, we actually have, I was looking at this last night, actually. Our recommendation is actually 6 months after their recommendation.
The 2027 date.
28.
28.
Yeah, so it's like June 28. The recommendation was January 1st.
We did that because we really thought through the rulemaking.
Yeah.
That's it, like, so we gave an
Extra.
plus.
Okay.
That's what thank you for reminding us of that, because that's what I thought. I was like, I think that we even pushed it out further than what the blurb asked for.
Yes.
I mean, my concern about pushing up the tier 3 out is that it's just gonna continue to confuse people. And so having it having the rules done, then people will know what they're talking about, and it will be easier for people to understand and plan or just be okay. And
Okay. So one possibility is that, so in light of what you're saying, Senator Beck, I'm not sure that Senator Heffernan is even going to offer this.
Or even intended to offer.
Sure,
Yeah.
well, fair enough. So one possibility is, because I think there's going to be more amendments, anytime in, well. If we are going to be debating an amendment, I'll likely call a recess so that we can chat together and do straw poll. So it actually, I'm not sure that it makes sense to take a straw poll on this right now, especially if we don't know
yeah,
if this is going to be offered, and just know that that will be a part of the process on the floor should any other amendments come up. I did get an email from Senator Benson about another amendment. Though he is not here, so I'm hesitant to just try to pivot to do that on the fly right now, so. And we have other,
Rep,
thank you.
if you wanna. Do it, yeah.
Well, let's see where we're at.
Yeah.
How much time do you think it will take to talk through this and then, go ahead and some advancements? Yeah.
I mean, it's a little bit longer than this one, but not much longer.
is it on our website though?
No, I just got it.
Oh, you did, but you do have it.
I just.
Okay. Okay.
Printed partners. Oh, it's only less than a page.
Oh,
So, yes, we can do it.
Okay. Well, so my thought was that just so folks know, we're gonna be talking about a wholly different topic shortly. Which might be nice to get our brains doing something else, but we're gonna be pivoting to a bill that I'm anticipating is coming to this committee. And we're gonna start that with Representative Sheldon to introduce it, and she's not here.
She's on her way.
Okay, so. If we can get Senator Benson in here and we don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great.
Sure.
Is this the right?
Yes, it is.
Do you want me to walk through it or?
Yes, it would be nice to know, if you can tell us what it does, and we can ask him about the rationale.
Sure, so, Benson Amendment draft 1.1 dated last night, 3/24. It's making 3 changes, to the same area of law. It's in your section 4, which is the income housing exemptions. And so it's amending, first, double D in 6081 is the interim housing exemption. So in the first instance of amendment, it is striking out the requirement that, they 2A, that there be requirement for them to have, permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws. Oh, sorry, let me take that sentence. Hold on, sorry, that's not what this is doing. This is striking out the requirement that the construction of 50 or fewer units, which are exempt under this provision, is striking the requirement that they be on 10 acres or less.
wait, what is it, I'm sorry.
I know, I just said that really poorly. There's an exemption for up to 50 units of housing in either village centers or along transit corridors, and it's for breaking out the requirement that it be on 10 acres or less.
Okay, so
It can be on there.
basically the requirement right now is that it be dense and this would start, and would it replace it with any?
No, not in the first instance.
Okay.
The second and third amendments are doing the same thing to each other, not as the first one. It's adding language that for, again, these exemptions, for the 50 units of housing, it's adding it's striking out the requirement that they have permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws. And then adding that the language would say it could be within a quarter mile. With, served by public sewer and water services or soil that are adequate for wastewater disposal. Or extending the terminus of the area served by public sewer and water services if beyond the 1/4 mile area. So in this exemption, sorry, if you have your bill.
I don't have this extent to,
I'm looking up at 5.2 right now, and it's got the same language.
Yes, okay. So there's this exemption for village centers. And the area 1/4 mile around the village center, if they have permanent zoning, it's up in bylaws currently. An adequate wastewater or soils. This is getting rid of the requirement that the village center needs to have zoning. And it's also saying that if the area beyond that 1/4 mile has sewer and water, the exemption is extended to that as well. So it's getting rid of the requirement for zoning and expanding the area for the up to 50 units of housing in village centers.
and if it's getting rid of the requirements for zoning, would Act 250 apply then if there's no zoning?
No, this is an exception from Act 250.
Okay, I'm sorry, Helen, I'm just trying to understand.
Well, but your question's a good one. Because it would mean you don't have to have no regulation.
There'd be nothing,
Uh,
yeah.
And like, or extending the terminus of areas served by water and sewer. Beyond 1/4 mile would. It's almost like trying to make a sentence. Like it's, I would say it's confusing because. Because it's gotta be. Constructed or maintained, located entirely within. Areas of a designated village center. Yada yada. And served by public water and sewer, and then to say, or extending the terminus of the area. If beyond 1/4 mile area, so that in my mind doesn't place any, because it's saying it has to be entirely within this area, but then this is like going beyond that area. So it's almost like it has no limits. At least that's how I read it. Is that a conundrum?
No, I think you stated it accurately. I mean,
Okay.
you're already in the statute creating you're getting rid of the area because it's
Right.
the village area and the 1/4 mile around it. And so this is, I guess, attempting to further extend that.
Oh, we can, how about 5 minutes? Okay. Okay. Thank you, okay, I think I am understanding that, or at least in my mind, what I feel like is a conflict there, but, let's move on to the third one, and then we'll hear from Senator Benson.
So this does the same thing for the exemption. For the construction of housing within downtowns. So it's getting rid of the requirement to have permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws for this exemption. And then also adding that same language about extending the terminus of the area. Served by public sewer water services if beyond the area of the downtown development or the development district. And so unlimited exemption from Act 250 for housing in downtowns. But you do have this requirement in the statute that they have. So permanent zoning and subdivision clause.
So, sorry, for the second instance of amendment was just for
Village area,
village areas, yep, okay,
or designated village centers.
okay, sorry. Oh, okay, yeah, so village centers, and the third one is for downtowns.
Yep.
And it's doing the same thing, but a downtown, to be designated as a downtown, it must have. Zoning already?
No,
No, okay.
but The there's only one downtown currently that doesn't have zoning.
Okay. Okay.
Where's that?
Western.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions for Ellen at this point? Okay, great. I have Senator Benson with us. Would love to hear your rationale. Welcome.
Well, no, thank you. So, what really spurs this is, of course, we're all trying to deal with the housing issue. And we know some will disagree, but that Act 250 creates a big hurdle for, to get there. And in my district, there is one community that does not have permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws, and that's town of Williamstown. And they have a couple of projects they want to move forward. And I talked actually to the chair of their select board last night just to find out where they are. And they're about ready to pull the plug on the project because they got a ruling from the district commission that the project will be subject to Act 250. They're talking about 8 housing units in the downtown, has water, has sewer, has all of the amenities, but the cost and the time frame to go through the process is just not making the project viable. So what this is trying to do is take that impediment out of those communities so that they can move forward with housing just the same as a community that does have permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws. I heard the comment, well, then there's no rules. Well, that's not true. All of the technical permits still apply. They still need a water wastewater permit. They still need to deal with stormwater, erosion control. They still need to get an access permit to come onto either a state highway or a town highway. So there are a number of items that apply. And if we look at Act 250, Act 250 doesn't ask, do you comply with zoning or subdivision bylaws? It asks, do you comply with the town plan? And so it's a town plan, and the town plan looks at those areas in the village centers as growth areas. And we're only talking about housing. We're not talking about commercial development, industrial development. This is housing, something the state really needs. And so, say my amendment asks to allow those communities that don't have the permanent zoning and subdivision bylaws to be treated on the same level as those that do. That's basically the request.
I want to thank you for bringing this. I love that it's a specific example. I love that you're problem solving for your community. This is the kind of thing that I would love to like chat more about and see what we can do. I will just say, I think the way that this is framed, unfortunately doesn't create the kind of boundary that I think works for the statute, because it's saying it has to be entirely within this boundary, but then the language is saying it can be outside that boundary. So having said that, if we're gonna straw poll it, I would vote no on a straw poll, but that's not to say that I don't appreciate that problem and would love to think some more about how we can find some solutions for Williams to come. And I would invite, like, let's talk some more.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes, go ahead.
part of one of my pros here was to get a house, to get the
Mhm.
too, so that's part of it, and that's why the sort of planning grants were there, and it's all kind of tied together.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, we can't force them.
Yeah, right, no, fair enough, right,
Yeah.
okay, thank you so much, I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah, oh, so.
I'm just confused what's gonna happen now. Is this gonna be offered? Because I mean, I agree with the chair, like, it feels like this is a problem we could try to solve, but not,
Preferred reading?
but maybe if we can get enough information, cause also. We were just told that only one town doesn't have zoning and that's Westford, so
I've got what's
that's why I'm thinking.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, that was downtowns.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I know village centers.
okay,
There's quite a few towns.
okay.
That's permanent zoning.
So I guess I would just like to understand the implications more and see if we can figure it out, but. Without understanding it, I don't wanna vote for it if I don't understand it and what it would do.
And it's the kind of thing too that I think if we were going to change it for all village centers, that would be a big deal. And so that's something that I'm not sure that we would have sufficient time to fully vet by even by third reading. So are you planning to offer this amendment?
That was the plan, that's why I wanted to get it to you, so this committee could review it and we could talk about it.
Well, I appreciate that, thank you. So. What we could do a straw poll, but it also seems like I think we kind of know where we're at.
I asked you
Yes.
this question, I heard what your concerns were, or is. If the expansion of the additional area beyond the village center were removed and we just stayed with within those boundaries and eliminating the requirement for zoning and subdivision bylaws, does that make it more tenable? Because those are the areas that are really designated by those communities where they want their
So-
growth to occur.
And let's you and I chat offline, and we can talk. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay,
Great.
and actually, I'm inclined to not take a straw poll right now.
Okay.
If you offer it,
Yeah.
we'll call a recess and we'll do a little straw poll, we'll go from there.
All right,
Okay,
great,
thank you very much.
much.
Okay. Okay, because we are gonna move on. Thank you. Well, and we have the Chair of House Environment here with us. Welcome. Yours. Yes. Okay. Yes, thank you. So we're switching gears. Just a deep breath, clear out some of the 325 energy.
You bring in an old school
Yeah. A different topic.
environmental bill that's here for a revamp that we think improves it significantly. So we are calling this bottle redemption producer responsibility. And it is the bill, it's what is it, 9:15? It's on the floor. We're at third reading today on the floor, by the way, but this bill is going to, actually, I've been working on trying to update the bottle redemption system for a long time, and some of the folks in this room have been there along the way also. You might remember a couple of years ago, we tried to do a bit of a large scale update all at once kind of thing, and that did not, frankly, the governor just wasn't ready to go that far. And I think in this iteration, we're doing a really logical step, which is to solve the challenges that are before us with the redemption system, and those current challenges are a lack of profitability for the redemption centers who've managed to stay in business all this time, and also a distribution problem. The great example here from Madam Chair is your own town doesn't have a redemption center, so we have redemption deserts, not just in our rural areas, but also in our more populated areas. So the bill seeks to shift the burden of bottle redemption onto manufacturers. Frankly, they've been at the table. Their representative is here, has been incredibly helpful and forthcoming, and the bill represents kind of a great coming together of the Agency of Natural Resources, the environmental organizations, and the manufacturers to set up a PRO, which I'm excited about. So Vermont was one of the first jurisdictions in maybe the world to have a bottle redemption system. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but there's 5 cent deposit, this does not change. 5 cent deposit, and it's on classic beverages. Some folks want to expand what it applies to, but I think actually learning the volume of material that currently goes through the redemption system, and the problems, the gaps that exist, it makes sense to go incrementally. But also I know there's folks who think, oh, why couldn't we just put it all in our blue bins? Again, back to the volume of material that is coming through the bottle system. And folks are drinking more and more beverages, not fewer beverages, right? So, and what's cool is the material is readily recyclable, and so the manufacturers can use it quickly, turning it right back into new bottles and cans. How does it work? The bill asks the manufacturers to set up a producer responsibility organization that will then have a detailed plan vetted by the Agency of Natural Resources and overseen by them. That's the ideal scenario. In the case that they don't set up their own PRO, the agency has to do it, and there's compensation set up for them to do it if they have to. That's a backstop issue. And just another aside is that jurisdictions all over the world right now are also who haven't had redemption programs moving in this direction. So if we think, oh, this is an old school system, it's actually an old school system that is becoming popular again. So there are folks around who can help us stand it up. And we've heard from them as well. So they said they create the plan, and then they actually invest in, they utilize the current redemption centers to the extent possible, but they also need to prioritize areas that are underserved today. And that's defined in the bill, and you walk through that with Ledge Council, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, we get a system that is more efficient and more accessible to the consumers and leads to just more better convenience and modernized collection systems. I don't know, maybe I'm a policy geek, but I had a lot of fun learning about how people are collecting bottles in different ways, and then also reducing pollution from trucking, if you're curious about that, because these systems, most of these systems would have bottles consolidated and crushed on site before they got moved. Some of them rely on bags, but most of them, actually, even the bag drops would crush the bottles and can separated and then send them on their way, so there's less truck. And I don't know, y'all have questions?
So,
Go
go ahead,
Well, I
yeah.
remember the last bill, what that it really helped bring profitability to the redemption centers. They get prices doing the same thing.
Well, so this has a temporary increase in the handling fee for non-commingled bottles, right? You're not, your head's not into it yet, but that, you'll get there.
Can't wait.
And eventually, I think these systems move away from a handling fee, and they are increasing profitability. It's a negotiated contract between the folks who frankly have the real estate and the systems now. And I think that, you know, we heard from redemption centers, they're cautious, but they know things need to change. And I'm hopeful that they realize they are in the driver's seat in the locations where redemption centers are happening today and do have the ability to negotiate with this PRO to make a system that is better than the one we have today.
Is it really eligible? Oh, we don't have it yet. It's up for a third reading in the House today. So you mentioned the handling fee. Is there anything else that that you should flag for us that as, you know, that might be controversial or tricky or anything, or things that we should be working on? Something like that.
No, we think it's great.
Okay, okay, perfect. And how did it come out of committee?
Oh, 9-2, actually, yeah. Yeah. And it does rely on a 4-year kind of allocation from the Clean Water Fund, from the issues, from the returnables, which, you know, I get some of that heartache, but I will just say that for us, it's a direct link. Many bottle redemption programs rely on infusions from the uncollected deposits, particularly to stand them up. So we are asking for 4 years of, I think it's about $3.5 million total to invest in modernized redemption programs, and that'll be a grant funded through the Agency of Natural Resources that the PRO has to get the investment approved presumably before they make it, and then it would be partially covered by money from the uncollected deposits and then also from the industry. As we imagined. So, thank you for this.
Thank you so much. Okay, great. So we will, thank you. We're gonna turn to Mr. Grady, who's joining us remotely today. Welcome.
Welcome, thank you, and thank you for accommodating me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Should I put the bill on the screen?
I think that would be helpful.
Do hard copies.
We do have, well, the hard copy that we have is as introduced. If you.
Yeah.
Is that the one you walking through, or would you be walking through a newer version?
No, it's a committee bill, so it is as introduced.
Okay, very good.
And as you noted, it is up for a third reading on the floor today.
Okay.
So this is Michael Grady with Legislative Council. I'm going to walk you through an act relating to establishing extended producer responsibility program for beverage containers. Before I tell you what this bill does, I'm going to tell you what it doesn't do. It doesn't raise the deposit on any container. It doesn't include an automatic increase of the deposit if recycling goals are not met. It doesn't increase the scope of containers subject to redemption. So it's not going to apply to bottled water. It's not going to apply to bottled iced tea or wine or hard cider. That is what it doesn't do. What it does do is that it creates an extended producer responsibility program for the collection, redemption, and disposition of containers that are currently subject to the bottle deposit law. And it establishes mandates or minimum requirements for the plan that the manufacturers and distributors must implement for that collection, redemption, and disposition, including convenience requirements intended to increase the convenience for collection, especially in those places referred to as redemption deserts in the state. So that is generally what the bill does. And I'll now.
Sorry, if I can interrupt you, we have a question.
Hey, Michael, I just have a kind of clarification question. The use of the word disposition of beverage containers, what does that mean?
So it's about if they're recycled, if they're reused, if they potentially are managed in a different way. Like that's what I mean by disposition. I don't like to say disposal, and I don't like to say just recycling, because there are alternatives other than those two.
Okay, thank you.
I had that same question actually. I was like, wow, disposition, it's a new usage for this. Question here, yes, go ahead.
Well, is that, I think I heard that someone, Sean say that they were gonna actually process them right on site.
Were they gonna crush them?
Yeah.
Some of it?
Yeah.
Yes, sounds like that's a part of it.
Put it right into the recycle stream.
That's a good question. I think we should find out more about it. Okay.
So I do want to note that the existing MRF system, the what is called the blue bin system, mixed system, that is not being altered by this, except that maybe it will become more convenient for people to use the redemption system rather than the blue bin system. But it doesn't do what the last bill did. The last bill that was vetoed by the governor by decreasing the supply of containers going into that blue bin system by increasing the scope of the containers that subject to redemption. It doesn't do that. This bill is leaving the blue bin system as it is, with the caveat that increased convenience might lead to some decreased supply to the blue bin.
Oh, and there's another question.
So I'm just curious about the redemption center that it's probably sold.
We should hear from them. Well, we hear from multiple. So, see to that.
Sure,
Thank-
and the House did hear from multiple redemption centers. I think there's a variety of positions. So, should I proceed?
Yes, please.
So section 1 is a large part of the bill. It is amending 10 VSA chapter 53, which is the beverage container redemption system. The first changes are in the definitions, but they do not change the scope. The key definition for the scope is what is a beverage, and that is not changing. It's still going to be beer, malt beverages, mineral water, mixed wine drinks, soda water, and carbonated soft drinks. It doesn't add anything else. Liquor is already part of the program, and we'll talk about liquor in a second. The definition of container is changing to be clear that it's pretty much any of those beverages in any type of container. There was an exception for biodegradable material that wouldn't be subject to the beverage redemption, but that is being replaced. And the only limit now is that carbonated beverage containers with a volume greater than 3 liters are not going to be part of the program because of the issues with redeeming that size of a bottle or container in with some of the automated equipment. Manufacturers and distributors are the entities that are subject to redemption and will be subject to the producer responsibility requirements. You will see the definitions of those two on page 2. And then you get to the beverage container deposit. Again, it is not changing, but there was this strange language in current statute that said that a deposit is not less than 5 cents, which made people think that it could be more than 5 cents. And so that not less than language was struck. Moving on to page 4, you will see that the handling fee on line 7. So does everyone know what the handling fee is?
I think I do, but I think it's worth explaining nonetheless.
Sure. So when a manufacturer sells their beverages to a retailer, they collect 5 cents as a deposit. And then the retailer sells that container to a customer, and the retailer collects 5 cents from the customer. Now the retailer is whole, but the customer is out that 5 cent deposit. The customer brings the empty bottle back. The retailer gives the customer 5 cents. The retailer provides the container to the retailer, or the redemption center provides the container to the manufacturer. The manufacturer gives the retailer redemption center 5 cents plus an additional fee for the retailer redemption center's costs in returning, sorting, and collecting that container subject to the redemption system. Right now, there's what's called a co-mingling system. So multiple brands have entered into an agreement so that their brands can be collected in mixed form, that they don't have to be sorted out one by one. But then there are those containers that are not co-mingled. And that's where a lot of the cost in redemption exists. You have to basically sort the brands by hand at the redemption center, which is labor intensive, time intensive, and to incent those brands to enter the co-mingling program, you are increasing the handling fee from 4 cents to 5 cents for those retailers and redemption centers that are doing redemption. Does anyone have a question on that?
I feel like I will have more questions, and I I'm gonna need to just like absorb this for now and let it percolate.
Okay.
We'll talk more about it, so.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
But one of the things to understand is that once the producer responsibility organization is formed and their plan is being implemented, there will be no handling fee, because you will see underneath that plan that the producers are going to enter into compensation agreements with the redemption sites. So it might be more than the handling fee, it might be less than the handling fee, depending on volume, but there will be a negotiation of what the compensation will be for redemption centers, albeit that ANR has to approve that compensation framework. Moving on, in 1522A, the rules are being struck here because they're really outdated and antiquated, and later on in the chapter, you're giving ANR general rulemaking authority. Section 1523 relates to acceptance of beverage containers. Generally, a retailer shall not refuse to do redemption of any brand that it sold. And a manufacturer or distributor shall not refuse to pick up from a retailer that sells its product container for redemption. And then, but on page 6, if a retailer has less than 5,000 square feet and there is a producer responsibility organization that is operating, they will not be required to do redemption. They may refuse to do redemption. And similarly, if a manufacturer distributor is selling directly to a consumer from a retail location where there is less than 5,000 square feet, that manufacturer may refuse to redeem. And the concerns there are space. Redemption takes a lot of space, especially if it's a popular redemption site. If there's a PRO that's already set up, the general retailer may refuse. And then the manufacturer distributor that's selling directly can refuse just if they have less than 5,000 square feet. Section 1524, line 15 on page 6. This changes some of the labeling requirements. The containers need to be labeled in a certain way to provide notice of the deposit. Right now, the information needs to be on the top of the container, but that's often hard to do. So on page 7, line 3 and 4, the label shall be on the top, the side, or in a clearly visible location. And then going down on page 7, line 16 and 17, to facilitate redemption, to facilitate the use of the modernized equipment, every beverage container sold or offered for sale in the state shall contain a UPC product code and a barcode displayed on the container. This will allow easy scanning and sorting and basically allocation of cost to those manufacturers and distributors in the producer responsibility organization. On page 7, line 19, you're going to see a bunch of language related to the redemption of liquor bottles. This is not changing how liquor redemption is done. It's just that how liquor redemption is done is not transparent in statute. There's no statute really that sets forth the requirements for liquor redemption to this detail, and so it's being put in statute to provide how liquor redemption is done, so that it's available to the public. So you'll see redemption of beverage containers of volume greater than 50 milliliters that contain liquor are subject to the following requirements. They have a 15-cent deposit. They have a 3.5-cent handling fee. A retailer shall not refuse to accept beverage containers of liquor or refuse to pay that person the refund value for any container sold by the retailer that's not broken or is not otherwise exempt. And they shall not, the Department of Liquor and Lottery runs redemption of liquor bottles, and they shall not refuse to pick up beverage containers subject to the section, or refuse to pay the refund value, or refuse to pay the handling fee. Now, one of the things that is new for liquor redemption is that once the PRO, the Producer Responsibility Organization, is set up, DLL can coordinate with that PRO to collect liquor bottles, because maybe it'll be cheaper for the state to do collection and redemption of liquor bottles through the PRO instead of through DLL. So that will be discretionary authority of DLL to coordinate and compensate the PRO for collection. Liquor and Lottery has the same performance goals and redemption rates that you will see later in the bill for other beverage containers. And they report to A&R the amount and tonnage of liquor bottles that DLL collects in the previous calendar year and the redemption rate. So A&R can calculate what the redemption rate is for all beverage containers subject to deposit. Then you get to the redemption center certification. There's a striking of the fact that if they redeem more than, they have to redeem more than 250,000 containers a year in order to be certified and or approved in a commingling agreement. That's being struck. It's not enforced. And then you come to the creation of the PRO. So the first thing, and the thing that's in every PRO, Extended Producer Responsibility Program, is that there's a ban. So no manufacturer, distributor may sell or distribute a beverage container in the state without participating in a secondary approved producer responsibility organization. And then on or before January 2027, the manufacturers, distributors apply to A&R to form a producer responsibility organization. And A&R may approve that for a period not longer than 10 years, provided that the PRO needs to be a nonprofit. It has to have the ability to administer the plan. It can't create unreasonable barriers to other manufacturers joining it. And then after approval, you're now on page 11, line 5. The PRO needs to maintain a website that identifies the name and business address of each manufacturer, distributor in their program, the name of each beverage and container in the plan, and for each beverage container subject to the plan, a UPC and barcode. If the PRO fails to properly implement the plan, A&R can effectively dissolve the Producer Responsibility Organization. If the Producer Responsibility Organization is not formed, or if A&R dissolves it, A&R has the authority to administer the plan on its own, provided that it will charge each manufacturer and distributor the cost of plan implementation plus a 10% additional cost called a recycling market development assessment that would be deposited in the solid waste management assistance account in order to provide grants to develop markets to recycle materials. So if the PRO doesn't do it appropriately, A&R has the authority to administer the own plan and charge the manufacturers and distributors the cost plus a VIG.
And this is the same construct as the household hazardous waste.
It's similar. It's very similar. Yes.
Okay.
And then the PRO, normally in extended producer responsibility programs, the PRO is required to pay A&R a fee for A&R's costs in overseeing the program. Here, the PRO is going to reimburse A&R for the cost of overseeing administration of the program. And they're going to do that through the budget process. So A&R annually will submit to you, the General Assembly, the costs of overseeing the administration of the program, the PRO of 30 days to provide comments to A&R on that requested cost. And then what the cost will be or what A&R will be authorized to seek reimbursement on has to be approved during the state budgeting process. So that is effectively their fee. You, the General Assembly, approve fees. That's why you are approving this reimbursement. Page 13, liquor is not subject to the PRO. Remember, DLL runs their own collection and redemption. So liquor is not subject to it. And then you get to the minimum plan requirements. What each plan or any plan will have to meet in order to be approved by A&R. It has to provide convenient opportunities for consumers to redeem beverage containers. And the plan has to take reasonable efforts to site points of redemption equitably all across the state, and at least 3 points of redemption per county, at least one of which will provide an immediate return, at least 1 point of redemption per municipality with a population of 7,000 or more persons that provides an immediate return. And then page 14, how sites of redemption are or will be sited in areas with high population density that may not have 7,000.
Michael, what is the other two that don't provide an immediate return? What does that mean?
There's opportunity with some of the alternatives out there that you have it credited to your account or a card, or etc. And it's not necessarily an immediate redemption or compensation, but it's there for you to get your compensation when you follow the process for that.
Okay, so you get your compensation, you just get it through a different mechanism than
right, and it's not immediate that you get your cash at that redemption.
All right, okay. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's a different.
Okay.
On page 14, and this is a pretty significant thing to think about when A&R is approving the plan.
Sorry, I think we had this question. Yeah.
I just want to clarify though, I mean, this is saying that there has to be redemption centers that do get immediate return. So it's not changing that, like you can still, it's requiring that those still exist. Yeah.
Right, at least one per county and at least in the populations of 7,000 or more.
Yeah.
But there may, but not, I'm not splitting hairs at this point, but there may be parts of the county that don't have access.
We do.
Because, but nevertheless.
I just didn't know that any
About that.
option. Yeah, I didn't know that any other option existed.
I didn't know.
Credit is you can get credit in stores and redeem. Yeah,
That makes sense. Okay. All right, sorry, carry on. Thank you.
So when approving the convenience requirement, the secretary may alter the number of points of redemption depending on the adequacy of redemption of service in the area, provided that they shall not reduce the number of redemption points below the levels of 3 per county and 1 in population center of 7,000. And think I use the example of South Burlington, Shelburne Road, the 17 grocery stores that or redemption that is like on that strip. And 17 is an exaggeration, but there are several. A&R could say in approving redemption that not all of them are required, and that the PRO wouldn't need to fund redemption in all of those current places. Then you get to the fair operation and compensation to redemption centers. The plan shall specify how the locations are going to be fairly compensated for participation in the program. There shall not be barriers to participation in collection for a redemption center. And the plan shall describe how management and sorting is at redemption centers is minimized. They'll describe how materials will be picked up from redemption centers, and they shall maximize the use of existing infrastructure when establishing points of collection under subdivision 1. So when they're doing those collection points, they will try to maximize existing infrastructure. On page 15, line 3, there needs to be standards for collection locations. They need to provide expeditious redemption that limits the need for persons to wait for redemption services. They have to be at sites that are secure, sufficiently lighted, and managed to ensure safety. And they have to comply with all applicable laws related to collection, transportation, and disposition of mandated recyclables. The plan has to provide education to the public, consumer, regarding redemption and how it will be undertaken. And then in developing the plan, they have to consult with stakeholders on a regular basis, which shall not be less than annually. And then page 16, at a frequency required by A&R, but not less than annually, the PRO reports to A&R each redemption center and its location, the amount and material of beverage containers redeemed, the location and amount of beverage container material that was recycled, what it was recycled into, the carbon impacts associated with the administration of the plan, the cost associated with the administration of the plan, the description of any improvements made in reporting, the reporting year to increase the ease and convenience for consumers to return, efforts taken by or on behalf of the manufacturers to reduce environmental impacts, efforts taken by or on behalf of the PRO to improve the environmental outcomes, a description of the educational materials and any additional material for information required by A&R. So within 90 days after receipt of a plan submitted by the PRO, the secretary shall review the plan and determine whether to approve it or not. They will approve it if it meets all the criteria for the plan and for a PRO. The approval term is not greater than 5 years. Page 18. The PRO approves the plan. Once the PRO's plan is approved, they have 9 months to implement it. So 9 months to get the identify the redemption centers, enter into agreements, put the new equipment into those places. And if they fail to meet the redemption rate in section 1534, the secretary may require the PRO to implement additional activities, including additional redemption sites or additional redemption opportunities. There's going to be a program audit looking at how the program works every 5 years and conducted by a third-party independent entity. There's going to be a fiscal audit every year, again, by an independent third party, looking at the cost of the program and basically the redemption rate, its efficacy. And then those audit results are submitted to A&R, and ultimately they'll be submitted to you as well. 1534 is the redemption rate goal. Beginning July 1, 2029, the goal is 75%. July 1, 2032, it's 80%. Beginning July 1, 2029, A&R reports to the General Assembly with the redemption rate in the state for liquor bottles and then all other beverage containers. In that report, A&R will recommend to you whether the beverage container deposit for either of the beverage categories should be increased to improve redemption. There's no automatic escalator. The last time you addressed beverage redemption, you had an automatic escalator if the redemption rates were not met. This does not do that. You would have to legislatively act in order to increase the deposit. Page 20, line 7, this is the rulemaking authority. It's general rulemaking. Page 7, line 10, because the manufacturers and distributors are working together to establish things like distribution and collection, it looks like collusion. And so you are exempting them from the state's antitrust requirements or prohibitions on collusion. But they can't, on page 22, use that exemption from collusion to set what the price of beverage containers will be or to restrict the geographic area in which consumers can buy beverage containers.
This is pretty standard for PRO.
Totally standard. It's been approved by the Attorney General previously in at least 4 different EPR programs. Now, the manufacturers, distributors also want immunity from federal antitrust, but you can't do that.
Fair enough. Yes, thanks. Okay, thank you.
So you're out of the chapter of law related to beverage container redemption. You're now into A&R's default notice requirements. The plan is going to be subject to public notice and comment. It's going to go through effectively the public notice and comment that general permits have. There will be an opportunity for the public to comment, and there will be an opportunity for the public to request a public meeting on the plan. Then you get to the money. As you know, I believe you know that the abandoned beverage container deposits, often referred to as the sheets, they are deposited into the Clean Water Fund. But H915 would contemplate a transfer of those deposits from the Clean Water Fund to the Solid Waste Management Assistance Account for 4 years. So in fiscal year 2030, it would be $1 million. Fiscal year 2031, it's also $1 million. In 2032, it's $750,000. In 2033, it's also $750,000. So that's a total of $3.5 million over 4 years. Just for context, the Clean Water Fund has about, I would say on average, $40 million in it. So that's $3.5 million out of $160 million over 4 years.
Can I ask a question, Mike? I'm not totally following the timeline yet in the bill. I need to absorb it more, but 2030, why does the transfer start at 2030?
Because effectively that's when the PRO will be setting it up. I do have a timeline document.
Awesome.
That I can send to the committee if you would like it.
That would be great. I love those kinds of things. Thank you.
Okay. And then moving out of the Clean Water Fund, you're into the Waste Management Assistance Fund, and this just recognizes that the Solid Waste Management account will have transfers from the Clean Water Fund in it. This account lists its revenue sources. And then you will see that A&R will be authorized to enter grants for bottle bill implementation. The grants will be for 4 years and reimburse the cost of equipment and improvements to infrastructure. And then section 5, there's already a requirement that people that are collecting as part of the blue bin system have to report to A&R how much they're collecting, tonnage, et cetera, in order for the state to determine its recycling rates. Section 5 requires the manufacturers and distributors in the PRO to report in the same way the recycled materials that they are recycling, including the amount in containers and tons collected and the location and amount of beverage container material and what products the containers were recycled into. So just putting them on the same level as the entities that work through the blue bin system. And then section 6 is repeal of A&R's approval of redemption centers. Once the plan is stood up, the manufacturers, the PRO, is going to be negotiating with the redemption centers about who is going to do redemption. A&R doesn't need to certify those redemption centers anymore. There will be contracts between the PRO and redemption centers that will dictate terms. And then you get to the effective dates. It says the first effective date is July 1, 2026, but the timeline is built into the substance of the bill, provided that the UPC label on containers takes effect on July 1, 2027. and the prohibiting the sale, distribution without participation in the PRO takes effect on March 1, 2028. And that's the bill.
Okay. I know I'm gonna have more questions as I'm again also still absorbing it. So thank you. Any other questions at this moment?
No.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Mr. O'Grady.
Thank you, and thanks for accommodating me.
Absolutely. Okay, and so we're gonna move to Mr. Chapman.
Okay.
From DC.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So for the record, Matt Chapman, I am the director of the Waste Management and Prevention Division, where the section within A&R that oversees the bottle bill. I think just again, stepping back, I'm gonna be really truncated in my comments today, mainly because you're just getting into this bill and I'm gonna make myself available throughout the process. So as questions come up as we move through it, I'm happy to come back and answer them. I think it's important to understand, so the bottle bill was enacted in 1971. There's been virtually no changes to it since its original enactment. As time has passed, we have really changed both the way we recycle materials, but also how we deal with sort of special waste and how we manage and oversee them. I think one of the major challenges with the bottle bill is that it's developed organically. There's never been anyone who has sort of like overseen or tried to ensure that there's a consistent level of services or a good distribution of how cans and bottles are collected throughout the state. And so in some degree, that is what this bill is, right? So we have seen as the agency over the past several years, a decrease in the number of certified redemption centers. So people are getting out of the business of being certified redemption centers and an increase in the number of escheats / a decrease in the number of bottles redeemed through the system. So we're seeing an increase in sort of what Mike and others refer to as these sort of redemption deserts, where people have to drive longer, wait longer, take more time to redeem their beverages. You just to sort of flip a second back, so you asked about what a point of return or immediate deposit. So the thing that is probably the most likely technology is that there are bag drops that are out there where you basically put a twist tie on your bag with a barcode that basically ties to you, and you have an app on your phone. You throw the bag into a drop, you get the money back on your app, and you can either get it transferred to your bank account or there are donation options to it. So that's one of the technologies that may be looked at as a part of the system. But there are things like that. Again, I think a lot of the support of this bill is that the other challenge with it being grown organically is that there hasn't been a whole lot of investment in technology, and technology has come on to the scene. So we've certainly seen as a state, part of it is we're just small and we don't have sort of the throughput that other states have. And so there's not a push to invest in some of the technologies. So I guess I'll just sort of pivot a little bit and talk about what's important to the agency. I mean, I think and sort of starting off, the modernization effort at its core is the most important thing, right? I think we're looking at the bottle bill and some people may ask, and it's probably good to just put it out there, why expand the bottle? Why make these investments in the bottle bill? And I think that there's a couple reasons. One is certainly when we're talking about glass, I think that everyone agrees the quality of the glass that comes out of beverage return systems is better than what we get out of ours, right? I think PET is closer to the line, and that PET is about equivalent from the bottle bill system in the MRF, and it's clear that aluminum is equivalent to the bottle bill system in the MRF. There's some conversations about whether PET is dirtier, what type of PET, and how much waste happens in the context between the bottle bill and the MRF system. I think from the agency's position that it's time to make sure that the bottle bill, if we're keeping it, that we make the investments in it so that people can use it. It's not right to Vermonters to have a system that puts a 5-cent deposit on containers and then we don't give them opportunities to actually redeem those containers. And so that's, I think, one of the major things, one of the major elements that's sort of driving us towards this and making sure that people have reasonably accessible opportunities to redeem, and I think also that we create a mixture of redemption opportunities so that those people who need sort of that immediate money, because it helps supplement their incomes and they need it right then, that those opportunities exist, and the bill does have provisions that sort of focus those immediate return areas in denser areas where people might be walking or might be unhoused, right? And they pick up litter or they have and walk to where they're going. So we're thinking about those sort of economic justice related issues associated with this as well. But also making sure that there are other forms of redemption available for people who don't want to wait, right? And who would prefer just throwing their bag into a bin and getting credited a couple days later or a week later, and it's a much more convenient system for them. From the agency's perspective, I think there are a couple of things that are important. And I guess maybe contextually, it's good to say I think there's a broad agreement on most of the elements that are in the bill as it's coming out of that house. There are a couple elements that I think from our perspective that are critical. One of them is giving flexibility with respect to the handling fee. And basically we are putting an obligation to update and manage the system onto the beverage distributors. They are going to have capital investment requirements that they will need to meet as a part of this bill. And the people who benefit from this equipment that's going into the redemption centers, that's going to produce both the space that it takes and the labor that it costs, are the redemption centers. So the burden is on the distributors, the benefit is on the redemption centers. And I think what is critical from the agency standpoint is that we give the PRO the ability to come up with bespoke agreements that recognize the sort of economic transaction that takes place there, as opposed to having a statewide number for redemption for annual fee.
Can I ask about that? So when you say the burden is on the distributors.
Yes.
In this context, I mean, I think of the entity that comes to mind for me is Beverage Baron and Berry.
Sure.
And so when you say, because they sell lots, but they're not the distributor.
They are not.
Okay.
So
Make sure, like they're selling, but that's
Pepsi,
not.
Budweiser, they're
Okay.
the
The
distributor.
distributor. I mean, I'm so used to like the household hazardous waste or like the battery PRO that we would talk about them as manufacturers.
Right.
But in this case, it's like the distributors are the manufacturers, except for that they're also selling.
So with bottles and with beverage containers, they're franchise distribution networks within the state of Vermont, so we're not going up to the manufacturer, we're dealing with those, right? So either the manufacturer or distributor.
Gotcha.
Distributor, if there is a franchise distribution network, manufacturer, if there's not, we don't have many of those in the list of beverages that we currently manage.
Okay, so this is, so even with this product, there is a manufacturer, but we're not talking about, we're talking about. brand.
Barrel distributing, baker distributing, we haven't done those covers.
Okay,
Um,
okay, thank you, that's,
and so, yeah, and then just again, for context, because it's good, thank you, you're getting into the bottom bill and like Representative Sheldon said, I've sort of been doing this for the first half of the session over there, so remind me when we need to step back. So yeah, like places like the Beverage Baron or Jimmy Quick Stop up in the Northeast Kingdom, those places that actually take your containers and give you the 5 cents, those are the redemption centers that are the ones who hopefully will benefit from some of these investments.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify, when you were saying that the burden is on the distributors, not the redemption centers, that's what, in the bill, the burden would be on the distributors.
Absolutely.
not the- And
Absolutely.
right now it's flipped.
Well, right now, no one's responsible really for it.
Oh, I see.
Right, I mean, it's
Wild
kind of, you know, yes, it's a little wild west, there's no cohesion to the system. And, you know, I think that, we're basically forcing the distributors and the manufacturers into a PRO. That PRO is required to basically look at the map in the state of Vermont and make sure that people are being served, right? Like that there's sufficient collection of cans so that people aren't driving a half an hour, that they're waiting an hour in line in order to return their bottles and cans. And we're looking to them to make equipment and technology upgrades to the system that there are some redemption centers that have made those investments and they would need to be treated, I think, differently than those that haven't, right? So, but that's why I think the need to move away from a legislatively mandated handling fee towards giving the PRO flexibility is an incredibly critical aspect of this bill. So that's, and I'm not gonna, there will be people with different opinions on that, right? I think that, so that's incredibly important. I think the other thing that's important is giving some resources to the PRO to start the capital investments. You will hear from other witnesses, and I would, the distributors actually have someone who's actually looked at what it might cost to and what a future system might look like. And I would encourage you to look at that because that will help inform, I think, a lot of the thoughts that you have as you start moving forward in your deliberations. But it's going to be a lot more than the $3.5 million that we're talking about in order to build out the sort of technology infrastructure that's needed in order to modernize the state's beverage collection system.
To the question about the mechanics of I guess the contracts really, so the what I heard was that it's the PRO that would end up with some kind of either an MOU or a contract with redemption centers.
Yes.
Is that, I'm wondering if you could flesh that out a little bit, like, is it a single contract naming a whole bunch of entities? Is it individual contracts? Is it a contract? Is it an MOU? I would imagine it's a contract because money would be being exchanged.
I'm imagining it's contract.
Yes.
And,
Okay.
and I'm imagining that they're probably gonna be relatively individually tailored. There may be a lot of things that are similar between all those contracts, but I imagine that the compensation components of them will be individually tailored to what the redemption center looks like. I mean, I think it's probably good to appreciate as well that revenue equals the number of cans that pass through your redemption center plus the fee, right? So the more volume you have, the more revenue you have. So some places in more densely populated areas or areas that have a lot more cans, get more revenue than sort of say a small facility in Newport or frankly maybe even down in Manchester, right? Like those sort of more isolated areas.
So the money in the contract, I mean, you're citing these couple of elements that would be factors.
Sure.
It's not, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not, the amount of money would not be predetermined based on, say, a formula, or is it based on?
It is there is no formula that is required. You know, the agency, so your compensation structure has to be a part of your plan. It has to be fair, right?
Was that it?
It is.
Okay.
And that the agency reviews and approves the plan. So, and I am assuming that if someone during the negotiation process thought that it was unfair or that we would receive comments as a part of the approval process, noting the issues.
Okay. That answers where I was going with this question, because I was thinking about, what is to stop someone from negotiating down or up to,
So,
to tip the balance somehow.
sure.
But if it has to be fair and that is sort of arbitrated by
Right.
by DEC, or then that's at least a check, be like, if somebody's watching.
Yes, someone is watching. I think the other thing to remember is that there are minimum numbers of facilities that need to be out there. And it's a lot easier to use a facility that exists rather than for the PRO to set up a new facility and build it out themselves and right. So there's a big incentive for the PRO to use the facilities that are already out there.
Okay.
So investment so flexibility with the handling fee, investment in the infrastructure, and then this is not an expansion bill, right? So and I think that one of the key things is the system needs to be improved, modernized, and needs to get off the ground before we think about anything sort of else, right? I think H 158 that the legislature considered a couple of years ago, the two things that were problematic from the administration's point of view were the increase in the deposits and incentives and the increase in the scope of what was covered by the model. So we would not support a bill that had those two things in mind.
Okay.
So those are generally speaking the major like things that I would sort of underline and highlight. I mean, I think it's important to know there's been lots of conversations. I think that everyone's been, there's a lot of consensus around this bill. So I think sharing that.
That's great.
Yes. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm also happy to go.
Oh, yes, we are getting to go. Any questions?
Yes, or they
Yes, and anticipating that we will have more questions for you, and really grateful that you were saying at the beginning that you're around and happy to come back and would love to just keep you involved in the process. So very grateful for that. All
Thank you
right,
so much.
awesome, thank you. And we will see Mr. Burns on another day. And we are, yes, we're gonna need to